About a month and a half ago, I made a video playing and ranking every Unadilla that existed in MX bikes. So today, I thought I will take that same concept and see what other tracks we have a variety of. And would you believe it, there are 10 different iterations of Redbud in this game. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. I'm going to play each and every single one in chronological order from the dates they were released, not the actual date of the track it's based on itself. So, for example, Fat Muppet's Redbud 2000, based on the year 2000, but released in 2022. So we will do tracks prior to 2022 first, and then go in that direction. So I hope you enjoy. Let me know which version of this track is your favourite in the comments down below, and also let me know what other kind of tracks you'd like to see me cover in this series. I hope you enjoy. Released in May of 2017 by TFC, this was the very first Redbud that we ever had in MX bikes, and is an updated version of a track that goes all the way back to Beta 6, if I'm reading the forums correctly, which I don't believe exists anymore. I think this was updated. You can't get the old version. So for all intents and purposes, this is the very first Redbud accessible to us in the game. Now, similar to the Unadilla version, this is as bare bones as it gets. So track very flat, just one or two different ruts in the corners, and the ruts are more suggestions than lines that actually hold you. And I find it so interesting to go and read the comments on the forums on this track. 8 years is a long time, and the community has evolved so much since then, and I couldn't imagine the amount of positivity shown on the forums for this track if it was released today. So it shows how much standards have changed. Personally, this track does hit me with some nostalgia, which is going to influence my rating, unfortunately. I try not to put too much personal biases into these, but for me, this definitely sits in, I'm going to say D tier. Nothing deserves to be E tier on this. Like, they are far too good for that, especially when you consider the time this was created. This was before the Resolute Kraken track builder as well. So this was all done manually by TFC, and it's always going to have a special place in my heart. It doesn't actually look too terrible either. Texturing wise, looks absolutely fine. Obviously no intense norm action going on, but on track, off track, grass, 3D grass, looks good. So to start us off, first ever one, D tier. It took us 5 entire years to get another version of Redbud, released in July of 2022, which, funnily enough, in 2022, we had 5 different Redbuds. This was the first one, but this was part of the 2022 Aerial Championship, Outdoors Championship. And the craziest thing is, after going back and playing all 10 different iterations of Redbud that we got, I think this one's my favourite. And the reason for that is it's actually difficult. So it does look good. So obviously it's not quite to the level of the full track crew that we have these days with the JV, Hell Machine, some B-Clay on like GP tracks, for example, Stone Rider on this combo that we have. But it still looks very pretty. And the reason that I like it, I think it's because you have to take your time in some areas. The erode, or let's say the pre-made braking bumps on this track, it's not very uniform. So what can happen is the bike can get kicked around randomly, so you really have to be on top of your game. Whereas I find on modern day outdoors tracks, whilst sometimes the road actually might be bigger, so you might have peakier or deeper braking bumps, they're quite uniform to each other, so you can almost treat them like a whoop section. So you can kind of get on top, or you can jump your way through as well, and it does make them a lot easier. Whereas here, there's a lot of random like noise across the whole track, which is always unsettling the bike ever so slightly. I really enjoy the scaling. The ruts hold you quite nicely. There's a couple of different line options. Redbud does tend to be one-lined anyway. It's a lot of outsides. But for me, honestly, I'm putting this in A. Going to be controversial. Some of you won't agree, but that is my opinion. A tier. Redbud 2000. This will be some of people's most favourite iteration of Redbud. Created by Fat Muppet. There's a bit of a grey area on the release date of this track. So it's released on MXB mods as of August 2022. However, there was some drama at the time this released. Somebody that Fat Muppet trusted with track testing leaked it. So Fat Muppet then released it kind of early, but then went and tweaked it again a little bit and then released it again. So for the sake of this video, August 2022. I love this track. It sees a lot of play in pub lobbies. It looks really nice, and there's something so nostalgic about seeing all of the OG sponsors banners around the track, like seeing the Chaparral banners and things of that nature. It's really, really cool. I even saw a Linds banner on the side there, which I always forget that there's Linds stuff. Didn't ask for it, then it was just done. So thank you very much, Fat Muppet. This track, great. In terms of track layout, not remove roughness, remove ruts, the actual floor plan of the track, I much prefer this over modern day Redbud. I'd love to see him do like a retro 1 year and kind of revamp the whole place. But really, really solid track, and visually nice and pretty. It definitely looks more on the hard pack side than the more modern day ones, where it tends to be a little bit of like a loamier looking dirt. This definitely looks more slick, and it could have been back in the day. I'll be honest, I wasn't watching real life racing back in 2000. But really fun track. Very fast, does flow nicely, but a little bit tricky in some places as well. Not all of the ruts hold you super well, so you have to be very careful on the throttle. And anytime we do public lobbies, people love it and request it, so it must be a community favourite, as most Fat Muppet tracks are. This, for me, is going in B tier. I feel like anything C or below is way too harsh, but then I can't put it right above at the A's or the S's, so I'll do high B. So we got two weird ones coming up now. This is MX Bikes of Nations 2022. And this is the qualifying version. We also have a race version, which is up next after this. However, it was weird back here because years prior to this, qualifying was done based on like a hot lap, so just fastest qualifying time to get in to represent your nation. However, this year was the first year that we'd done it on a race basis. So they made this version of Redbud, which was the qualifying edition, which we signed up for and raced to try and finish first overall in your respective class to race for your country. And then there was a race version of this track as well, which is almost identical, but you'll see it in a second. But overall, kind of similar vibes to the 2022 Championship one. I do still prefer the 2022 Championship one over this Nations one. Reason being, this Nations one is a bit fast. There's a lot of that roughness taken out from the Nationals version, which you guys know me. I like tracks being slowed down. I like it having a bit of roughness, a bit of technicality to it. This track, very, very wide open, so that does take points away, in my opinion. And honestly, in terms of like fun factor for me, I don't think it quite hits the same spots that Fat Muppet's Redbud 2K does. But then at the same time, it also looks really, really pretty. And you do have to take looks and textures and stuff into account as well. For that exact reason, and because there's basically two iterations of the same track, I'm definitely going to group them together, but we'll see in a second the other one. I am going to put this high C. So it's not going to creep up into that B. Fun factor, not quite there for me. So high C for the qualifying version. So now we have the counterpart to the qualifying version. This is the 2022 MX Bikes of Nations Redbud Race Edition. And you'll see it's in the wet, it's in the rain. If anybody remembers that 2022 Nations, it was a little bit on the damp side. So they tried to replicate that in game, so I thought I'd run it true to the conditions. The only caveat is I believe they removed the rain texture, so the actual raindrops during the racing. However, the ground was still wet, so it still rode the same, it was just visually slightly different. Now, I'm actually going to rate this one less than the qualifying version. Hear me out. So the track is almost identical in terms of what you see, in terms of the ruts, bumps, this, that, and the other. They're almost identical in the same places. There's actually some corners on this track that are easier. Like there's less rough in some places, which I find very, very odd. I thought that the race version would actually be much more difficult. The other reason I'm rating it less is it's not very well optimized. There's something on this track that PCs do not like. Now, back in 2022, I had frame rate issues, which was the reason I didn't stream or record my races of the Nations event, because I wanted as many frames as possible whilst competing to give myself as much chance of doing well as I could. I thought I'd be past that, to be honest, like quite a beefy PC, but no, I was still struggling with FPS around here. It probably doesn't show in the recording because obviously it's limited to 60 for YouTube, but I was definitely getting less than I normally do. Again, it being in the wet kind of takes away from the fun a little bit. I don't actually think it's as enjoyable as the qualifying version was, so it's still going to be in C, but slightly lower. Only positive thing really for me on this was the nostalgia, because Team Great Britain won this year with the team of myself, Cam and Hurls. Hurls carried us so hard, by the way. This was before Cam really popped off. So C tier for this one. The fifth and final Redbud that released in the year 2022, just scraping in as well. This was released on December the 31st of 2022 by TFC. This was part of his big like public-esque kind of track pack of all of the outdoors tracks. This was one of the first, or might have been the first big pack that was on MX Bike Shop as well. And it's very, very simple, is worth me saying, which does take some marks away from me. And I feel like that's a common theme over all of the tracks in that pack back then. There's not much of a difficulty to it, and I think it was either this version or the other TFC version, which we'll get to shortly, that was on the Papiti ranked servers back in the day. And I just remember dreading having to do these, because everybody can go fast on these tracks where they are just wide open, not really any braking bumps. You see the ruts do hold you pretty damn good, so you can just crank the bike over. Visually, not too terrible. It's probably ruining the bitrate of this video, because it's quite a grainy texture, so there's a lot going on for the screen to try and keep up with. But looks fine, looks fine. Could do with a little bit more, I think, overall vibrancy, maybe a bit more saturation. The grass being like a slightly darker green, I think, would go a long way as well. It's hard for me to tell in this small window in OBS. I can't see what the 3D grass is doing, or if there is any 3D grass at all. But yeah, very, very basic again. So it's not quite the level of basic that the OG Dilla that TFC made was. So it will definitely go above that, but I'm honestly going to put this in the low end of C tier. It doesn't quite scratch that itch for me. So from one TFC rendition to another, this is the third TFC entry in this video. We have the 2022... No, we don't. We have the 2023 aerial outdoors version of this track. So this track was, in my opinion, an improvement over the previous one. Added a few more ruts, a few more line choices, a bit more rough in there as well, and visually looks a bit better also. Not quite as empty, you know, you've got all of the banners dotted around. I see a Linds banner there again. I feel bad for like digging and like hating, not really hating, but just giving my own opinion on a track when I see my banners. There's some nostalgia in here as well, seeing like the system decal banners dotted around. It's, I don't know, I remember doing this race back in 2023 and really not enjoying it at all, but in a vacuum, if you remove it from a racing aspect, the track is pretty damn solid, to be honest. I do not see it quite competing to like the 2022 version that Stone Rider made, because that's still my most fun one to ride. I also don't put it above Fat Muppets Redbud 2K. I am gonna probably put this, let's say, top of C tier, because there is definitely a place for this track. Kind of depends what you want as a rider, and you can see as I'm riding around here, there are just different line choices that you can take. I do feel it's fairly one-lined in terms of race speed, but let's be honest, I don't really know of any Redbuds that have multiple line choices. It's quite a fast-paced track because of its layout, so most of the time you end up either rallying the inside or an outside. So let's just slap it in C somewhere. Now, also another public lobby favourite. This is Kecks' version of Redbud. Now, I don't know how I feel about this track. Sometimes I've played this track and I love it and I'm feeling the flow. Other times I'll play this track and I feel like I've lost every single finger on both of my hands. I just feel like I can't play it for some reason. There is definitely a level of difficulty to it, because whilst there are multiple ruts dotted around, the ruts are quite shallow in terms of how they're built. So they're more, instead of being like cupped out where you can really get the bike cranked over, they're more of a slope. So the back end will slide around if you're not careful, which I do like. Adds a level of difficulty there as well. As I said, it sees quite a lot of playtime in public lobbies, so the general consensus is that it's quite a fun track. I don't know if you'd call it a downside or not, but it's actually quite hard to do well on this track in public lobbies because of the fact that everybody has played it so much. So if you're someone that's played it a bunch, that might be a pro, because you're really, really good at it. If you're someone who just wants to hop on and log some laps from time to time, you might actually find that negatively working against you. It's almost overplayed to an extent. But compared to some of Kels's other outdoors tracks, this one is up there. So I think Kels's outdoors replicas for me, like the Parlour's probably the favourite one, then it's this, and then Dilla comes after that. So I am also putting this in the C tier, and whilst it might appear above TFC's in the list, I really would put these two together in terms of overall enjoyment and raceability for myself. So I wouldn't want to say this one's better than this one, but they both exist. There's room for both of them. This looks really pretty as well, nice and vibrant, good saturation, which I like. So we'll put this one in the C tier also. 2024 aerial outdoors time. This is kind of like, I'd say, the prime era of visuals for the aerial team. Again, this was the JV Hell Machine Stone Rider combination trio for building all of the tracks in this year. It's a tough one with this because obviously visually stunning, but you'll be able to tell by the way I'm riding around this, and I think I've done about 3 laps in total to record this video. It's not difficult. It is very much rail the outside as much as you like, and that's basically it, which partly is because of modern day track building. Like, things just seem very, very fast and very largely scaled now, which I'm not the biggest fan of. But then also because, again, like, Redbud has a kind of a strange layout. I'd love to see like a much more technical, rough, scaled down version, see how it rides, to see if it's even viable. But very easy track, very, very easy track indeed. So that is going to deduct points from me. In terms of visuals, this track and the next one you're going to see, both impeccable. So that puts them quite high up in the marks as well. But I have to try and tie everything together here. So whilst this is another 2 years on for the aerial team, I don't rate this higher than the 2022 version. The 2022, I think, for me, is going to be at the top of the pile. And again, that's just personal preference and how I feel. For me, this is also A tier, but below that. I would just like it to be harder, because they are meant to be pro-level racetracks at the end of the day to test the best riders in the game. And this, I don't feel like it quite does that. Very, very simple, very high speed, but some people really enjoy that aspect of the game as well. So marks deserve there. So A tier, the 10th and final version of Redbud in this game, the 2025 Aerial MX version. Not too dissimilar from the 2024 one visually, on the same level. They both look almost identical, to be honest. I'm going to have to try and refresh my own memory watching this back now to see what's going on. It really does feel the same as 2024, like really, really fast. Doesn't look, again, too difficult at all. Although actually, you'll see it, before I go and say that the track's really easy, disclaimer, I do mess up at the end of the lap, and I just couldn't be bothered to record another one, so take it with a pinch of salt. But again, same points as the previous one. Visually looks really good. Fairly fun just to run laps on. If you enjoy going fast in the game, you're going to love this one as well. There's some bits that are a little bit more techy than 2024, which is strange because as a whole, I thought the 25 tracks were way easier than the 24 ones. But Redbud not sticking to that formula by the looks of it. Again, I'm going to put it in the A tier. It's going to be probably behind the 2024 one, but it doesn't mean anything. They are basically the same track, in my opinion, and that's going to happen, you know, when we race at the same places year in and year out. There's not really too much the track creators can do from that perspective about making the tracks different, unless they try and mess around with the ruts in a weird way, but then they might feel like they don't flow at all. If you're forcefully trying to make the ruts different, it just might not match the flow of the track. But still, overall, solid track. It is good fun, and you'll see it's nice trying to channel your inner Jet Lawrence in a second, which I failed to do. I don't know how I messed it up. I think so, like here, like doubling your way at the end of these rollers. But overall, solid track. A tier again. That's it. And that will do it for this video. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think I've got anything outrageously wrong? Is there some that I've rated low that you'd put higher, and vice versa? Again, let me know if there's any other tracks that there are a lot of iterations of in this game that you'd like to see me go and play each one of and give them a little ranking of my own. These are all personal opinions, of course. Like, I'm not right, you're not wrong, all these different things, so please don't be offended by anything I have to say. It's all for the love of the game and seeing how far the game has come over the years and what different track creators can do with the same track. So I hope you enjoyed. Again, just want to give a massive shout out to all of the members of the channel. Hopefully you can see your name up on the screen right now as a little bit of a thank you. And to everybody that stayed this long, it really does mean the most. Thank you very, very much. As you can tell from the attire, full Christmas mode now. We've got the Christmas jumper on, and again, we're getting closer and closer. I'm getting excited. Hope you are as well. And I will see you all in the next video. Thank you for watching.